It's 10 minutes past 4, 99.3 Nigeria Info, and this is Public Square, where we talk about all the big issues in politics, and a lot has happened in the past week. Our handles on Twitter at Public Square NG, at Rotimi Sankore, at Ideas Radio NG, at Niger Ma, at Awogo Obo. Those are all the handles. You've got questions and comments. Let us know what you think about the discussion today, which is a big one if you've been following the politics. Senator Elisha Abo, who represents the Damawa North Senatorial District, angered a lot of Nigerians on social media platforms, of course offline too, when the video appeared to show him slap a sales assistant at a shop in Abuja. And the President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, referring the matter to the Ethics and Privileges Committee, says that the integrity of the Senate will not be compromised. He wanted a report on that one. Obey, great to have you join us in Public Square today.
Hi, Aho, and of course I'm always happy to be here with Ideas Radio in the Public Square with Rotimi Sankore.
Afternoon, welcome Ayo.
Hi.
Yeah. So Aho has introduced the matter.
Well, I actually thought that rather than just talking about a particular issue, which as we understand it now,
individual.
or a particular individual who, as we understand it now, is in the hands of the Nigeria police and may face criminal charges. I thought that we should look at things in the context of legislators and accountability, because at the same time as the Senator Abo is being asked to account for his behavior, the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission has now taken up the mantle, or the gauntlet, I should say, the gauntlet thrown down by Tracker Nigeria and some other NGOs in Nigeria about the constituency projects. So I felt that it was a good opportunity for us to look at the way that at our legislators. They don't have immunity from prosecution in the same way that the president, vice president, governors and deputy governors have. And yet they may not have immunity from prosecution, but the way they behave is impunity. That's exactly the problem. Because in the case of the assault, there was this suggestion that an apology is enough. And for me, I think that this is always what happens. And it happens in so many cases where women or poor people or the marginalized are victims of oppression by the powerful and well-placed in society. You find that they are pressured, threatened, and if necessary, bribed into giving up their rights to have justice done. We see it a lot with rape victims. And often, in those cases, the rape victim is a child, and the parents decide that the matter will not be pursued.
The exact points we made this morning on Morning Crossfire.
Oh, really? I'm sorry, I missed that. But what this made me look into was we're just asking the question of what is the penalty for a legislator who transgresses? Or is it the fact that only when they're caught, when they're found out, that they need to be held accountable? And again, to whom are they accountable? Because the case of the senator, the case of the constituency projects, it's certainly a matter of issues being raised in the social media space. And the legislators now having to, be accountable. But are they accountable just because a Twitter storm was raised or the matter was trending on Facebook? Or are they accountable to their constituents? Or are they accountable to the Nigerian nation as a whole? These are some of the issues, I think.
I think that there are also two dimensions to it, because if you are a public official, in this case a member of the National Assembly,
Yes.
and your private conduct is contrary to what is expected of you.
Absolutely.
So that's one. The second is, if as a public official, your public conduct, you are just in line with your perceived duty.
Yes.
Because I mean, I don't believe in constituency project, but
No.
as far as things stand,
Yes.
it is seen as one of their so-called duty. So, if in the line of duty you also misbehave,
Yes.
how are you held to account? Because if Tracker and all the other NGOs had never raised this issue of Mr. Senator or Mrs. House of Reps, 200 million naira was allocated to you supposedly to do so. You have not accounted for it. Follow the money goes there and finds that in fact, you know, the so-called computer
Independent
center,
contractor.
you know, the so-called computer center is somewhere that has 2 old aging computers in it, or the so-called borehole is inside somebody's compound
Or that
with
the
a fence
contractor-
around it.
Well, the thing is that in many cases the contractor is, they say that there's nothing to do with me, Governor, it's all to
yes.
do with the
The
contractor.
contractor.
But then you find that
The
the
contractor
contractors,
turns
when
out-
you lift the corporate veil. But I'll say one thing that I did when I was considering this matter. Because we know that the police had to be forced
Yes.
to take action on the matter of slap. In fact, what that the video, I actually normally when I hear of these things, I don't watch the videos, but this time I made myself watch the video that had gone viral, and the things that shocked me apart from the actual physical assault.
It was the deliberate
the,
nature.
No, was the sense of entitlement.
Yes.
I will close you down. I will do this. And also the way that the police officer who was attached to the person started to join in the assault on the woman, dragging her out for arrest, and heaven knows what was happening outside. But what we understand from newspaper reports is that she had to go to hospital and have treatment for injuries to her eyes.
So in the case of private conduct of public officials that is inconsistent with their public office, what should happen?
Well, I was looking at it because apart from the any criminal sanction, I looked into the question of what happens when legislators are seen or considered to have brought the legislative body into disrepute. Now, I have to say I could not find a single case of a legislator in Nigeria resigning because of such things. The most I could lay hands on was Salisu Buhari, the speaker who had to resign in 1999.
Because of the age
well,
adjustment.
he resigned first of all because he was found to have been engaged in forgery and false declaration. He apologized, perjury and so on. But in the end, he could not have stayed because he did not meet the age qualification. And it's a little bit of a shame that the senator involved in the particular issue of the assault is the youngest senator, because just as when a woman transgresses, then her case is always brought up to explain why no other woman should be
hold
allowed
office.
near the corridors of
So
power.
in this
the
case,
same
too,
way,
all young people.
exactly, all young people are like, no, it's a fact. Young people are likely to be tarred with the same brush of immaturity, inability to understand the boundaries between their private conduct and their public. But I did find that, of course, in South Africa, there was a case of an MP who resigned, but he was kind of getting out, kind of jumping before he was pushed because he didn't want to testify before a committee, which if he had remained a minister and an MP, he would have had to do. But in the United States, there are several cases of legislators who are merely accused, not found guilty, not convicted, but legislators who have been accused of sexual assault or sexual harassment and so on. And they have been made to, or they have chosen, I won't say they've been made to, but they have resigned their position as lawmakers. I mean, I'll just give you, in March this year, an Arizona legislator resigned on Wednesday amid an ethics investigation into reports that he was charged with sex crimes decades ago. And mind you, it's not that he had been found guilty decades ago, but he had been charged. And then another one in Pennsylvania, again in March in the United States. 6 days after he was formally accused of sexual assault, Pennsylvania State Representative Brian Ellis has resigned his seat in the General Assembly. Same thing, a California state legislator also resigned his seat after being accused of unwelcome flirtation and sexually suggestive behavior with several women. And he resigned as colleagues were due to vote on whether he should be expelled. Now, the problem is that there, the colleagues had a sense of how it reflects on them as a whole when such things happen. Here, and it's a question to whether they allow partisan issues to guide their conduct, because we remember when President Bill Clinton was impeaced by the House of Representatives in the United States. When it got to the Senate, the political calculation had already been that the Senate would not remove him from office. The same thing is happening now with Donald Trump. The House may vote to impeach, but when it gets to the Senate...
Can we just throw in a word there to say that in America, impeach doesn't mean to remove you from office. It just means you've been indicted.
Yeah, it just means you've been indicted. But it doesn't mean it here either. It's just that the process follows with barely a breath. So, yes, impeach doesn't mean remove. So it's a question now. The Senate President is said to have set up some kind of inquiry into the conduct of the legislator. Now, the People's Democratic Party, to my mind, got out in front of this scandal. They didn't dig their heels in and start trying to defend the indefensible.
In a partisan way.
Because of partisan considerations. Rather, they said that he was, they condemned the behavior. But should he remain in position? Should a legislator who is found wanting in such a very glaring way? Because I found that it's not just that there was the assault for which there may be criminal sanction. It was actually, as I said, that sense of entitlement, that sense of...
deliberate action, impunity.
No. I'm not talking about the actual physical assault. I'm talking about the way that the legislator was talking about, I will get you closed down, and this, if not for this, I would have done this, and if you were not my friend, and so on and so forth. And I found myself wondering, should such a person be entrusted with power at all?
Obviously
because
not.
The inability to understand that the fact that you have a quarrel with a shop or a shop assistant's friend, who was actually the friend of the shop assistant who was slapped, the fact that you have a quarrel with a shop, is that why you should now threaten, be able to bring the levers of power to bear to close the person's business down? Even the whole, you can't talk to somebody on the telephone when I'm addressing you. I mean, one wants to almost say, the hell are you? I mean,
So she can even choose not to respond at all.
But that sense of, a whole me, I can now start ordering and pronouncing and dictating the fate of ordinary people. That was the area that I found particularly disturbing.
Because we're running out of time, I think it's also worth underlining that when governance is done as it is here, where once you are elected into the National Assembly, your interaction with your constituents reduces. There is no weekly or monthly interface
Well, there could be.
where, well, yes, but I'm just trying to point out that the distance
Yes,
becomes an accountability
absolutely.
problem.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to face your constituents. The other thing, of course, is that governance literacy in many constituencies is not as high as it should be. So some people will come out and say, boy, he has apologized now. He has
Yes.
begged them. You know, what else do you want him to do? Type of behavior.
I mean, as I said, you see, there is really that issue. Is it when you are holding, as I say, from those unto whom much is given, much is expected, or much is expected from those unto whom much is given, and as I said, it is. It ought not to be a partisan issue, but I did mention on my own personal Twitter phrase, I said that it was interesting to see the way that PDP had gotten out ahead of this, unlike some other parties which were protecting grass cutters until the last person. And then people, what do you mean? That what is this the same sort of thing? And so on. And no, obviously it's not the same thing, but it's certainly the same sort of political issue. Well, I want to, I have to bring this discussion to an end. I think that our legislators certainly are now discovering that they are not going to be able to get away with doing what they like, whether it's in their constituency projects or in their personal behavior. And we look forward to more of this. But for now, I have to sign off on ideas. Ideas, as you know, the A in ideas is for accountability.
And the I is integrity.
Integrity.
And the Senate President said that this issue calls the integrity of all of them into question. So thank you so much, Ayo. Very grateful.
Well, I have to excuse myself for next week because
you're
I will
away.
be burying my aunt in Ibadan. So,
sorry.
but who knows? I'll be back disturbing you
Yes.
during the off and on
Yes.
during the what we still like to call summer.
Okay.
But I want to wish everybody, I mean, what can we say? Nigeria versus Cameroon. I mean, obviously, integrity, democracy, ethics, and accountability, clear road.
Well, so the football starts. So the football kicks off at 4.
Football is a game of
Yes.
ethics and integrity.
It kicks off at 4:30 today, so we won't have the normal program. And I know that many people would have wanted to hear the detail of the